Thousands of years ago, long before the British Isles were islands, long before the seas rose to swallow the coastlines, there existed a world hidden between today's United Kingdom and mainland Europe. A vast stretch of land, rich, green, alive. A world now known only by one mysterious name: Doggerland. Imagine a place where rivers carve deep valleys across the earth, where lakes shimmered under a colder but fertile sky, where mammoths walked alongside early humans, and where entire families built homes on land that today lies silently beneath the North Sea. Back then, Europe was not divided by water. It was a continuous landscape. Hunters moved freely from one region to another. Tribes crossed what is now ocean without even knowing they were walking on a future seabed. Life flourished here. Doggerland was not empty. It was full of people, families, tribes, children running along long riverbanks, people who had no idea that their entire world, their homes, their hunting grounds, their memories, would one day disappear beneath the rising tides. And long before the great flooding, this place was a paradise for early humans. Forests stretched for miles. Animals roamed in abundance. Fish filled the winding rivers. The land was alive with opportunity. But far beneath this peaceful life, the planet was preparing a dramatic event. A silent force that would change everything. No one living on Doggerland knew that their world was temporary. No one knew they were walking on borrowed land, and no one imagined the ocean would one day return to reclaim it. This is the story of the world that vanished beneath the waves, a world forgotten by time and rediscovered by science thousands of years later. To understand Doggerland, we must first understand the people who lived there. They were not primitive wanderers. They were intelligent, adaptable humans who understood the land deeply. They lived in circular huts built from wood, bones, and animal hides. They crafted tools from flint, carved figurines from antlers, and created art that still survives buried under the seabed. Their days were structured by nature. At sunrise, hunters moved into forests filled with boar, deer, and ancient cattle. Women gathered berries, herbs, and roots. Children learned the rhythm of survival from their elders. These people were connected to the land more intimately than we can imagine today. They knew the songs of the birds, the patterns of the stars, the movements of animals. They could sense changes in the wind, the migration of herds, even approaching storms long before they arrived. Doggerland had lakes so large they seemed like inland seas. Tribes fished using wooden boats carved from single logs. They followed rivers that one day would become North Sea shipping routes. They crossed valleys that today lie hundreds of meters underwater. Life was good, simple but rich, and yet there were signs subtle, at first, that the world was changing. Temperatures shifted, glaciers melted slowly, rivers swelled, creeping higher each year. The people didn't understand climate science, but they understood danger. The ground beneath their feet was becoming unstable. Seasons were shifting unnaturally. Animals moved toward higher ground, and somewhere far to the north, a massive wall of ice was preparing to collapse. A collapse that would unleash one of the greatest floods in human history. The people of Doggerland continued living, unaware that they were standing on a ticking geological clock. The world entered a period of dramatic transformation. Glaciers that had shaped Europe for tens of thousands of years began to melt first slowly, then at terrifying speed. Rivers swelled, lakes rose, marshlands expanded. Doggerland, once a vast paradise, began shrinking. Villagers were forced to relocate. Low-lying areas flooded permanently. Hunting grounds disappeared beneath muddy waters. Families moved south or west, carrying stories of a drowning land. To them, it seemed like nature was becoming unstable, dangerous, unpredictable. But the real threat, the final blow, was still approaching, far across the northern seas, beneath the Atlantic. Pressure was building. A massive underwater landslide, one of the biggest in Earth's history, was preparing to occur. A collapse so large it would send a megatsunami racing toward Doggerland at unimaginable speed. This event would later be called the Storegga slide, a geological catastrophe so powerful that it would permanently reshape the map of Europe. The people of Doggerland couldn't see it. They couldn't hear it. But their world was about to end. Not over decades, not over years, but in a single, devastating day. It began with a distant rumble, one that no human ear could hear. Deep beneath the Norwegian Sea, the earth shifted. A massive underwater landslide, nearly 300 kilometers long, suddenly collapsed into the abyss. This was the Storegga slide, one of the greatest natural disasters in Earth's history. The collapse displaced an unimaginable volume of water, creating a megatsunami that tore across the ocean at the speed of a jet plane. Waves, nearly 20 meters high, surged outward in every direction. Across Doggerland, people continued their daily lives, tending fires, crafting tools, watching their children play. They felt a strange vibration beneath the earth, a momentary unease. Birds scattered. Animals grew restless. Then a roaring sound like thunder, like mountains breaking apart, echoed across the horizon. Before anyone could understand what was happening, the ocean itself rose like a moving wall. A towering wave slammed into the northern coasts of Doggerland with unimaginable force. Homes were pulled apart instantly. Entire forests were flattened. People were swept away before they could even scream. Villages that had existed for centuries vanished in seconds. Those who survived the first impact ran inland, desperate, confused, terrified. But the sea was relentless. Wave after wave crashed against the land, flooding valleys, swallowing rivers, destroying everything in its path. Doggerland was broken, scattered, drowning. The people didn't know this wasn't just a storm or a bad tide. It was the beginning of the end. Their world would never recover. The megatsunami had delivered the final blow. But the real destruction continued for centuries. As the Ice Age ended, global temperatures rose, oceans expanded, massive glaciers melted into the sea. Every year, the ocean crept higher. What was? Once fertile land became marsh, marsh became swamp, swamp became shallow sea. Families abandoned their ancestral homes, carrying whatever they could. Some moved into the rising highlands of what would one day become Britain. Others crossed into continental Europe. Tribes changed. Languages shifted. Memories of their old homeland grew faint. Stories began to form, stories of a great flood, a drowning world, a paradise lost beneath the sea. Generations later, these memories would become myths of ancient floods, told by coastal peoples, and slowly Doggerland disappeared. By around 6000 BC, the last high points of Doggerlands remained, above water. But even these would not survive the rising ocean. The North Sea claimed everything. Doggerland was gone. For thousands of years, the lost world slept silently beneath the cold waters of the North Sea. But it wasn't forgotten. Fishermen occasionally pulled up strange things from the deep. Ancient antlers, carved tools, fossilized bones, spearheads, even pieces of human skull. They didn't understand what these objects were. Some thought they were from giants. Others believed they were remnants of ancient monsters. It wasn't until the late 20th century that scientists began to understand the truth. Using sonar mapping, sediment drilling, and underwater archaeology, researchers discovered something startling. Underneath the North Sea lay an entire lost continent. Rivers, valleys, lakes, coastlines, marshes, human settlements. Doggerland was real. Not myth, not legend. A forgotten chapter of human history. A place where thousands once lived. Now buried beneath 100 feet of water. For thousands of years, Doggerland slept beneath the freezing waves of the North Sea. Silent, untouched, its memory erased from the world of the living. But in the modern age, the sea began to speak again, not with words, but with clues. Small clues at first. A carved bone, a mammoth tusk, a sharpened flint blade, fragments of an ancient world that fishermen accidentally pulled up in their trawling nets. These fragments were not random. They were messages from a forgotten continent. A world waiting to be rediscovered. Scientists looked at the objects and saw something astonishing. These were not the remains of shipwrecks, not the traces of drowned medieval villages. No, they were far older, tens of thousands of years older. The seabed was hiding a world so massive, so ancient, that it rewrote European prehistory. So the question arose, how do you reconstruct a world that no longer exists? Not a city, not a region, but an entire drowned landscape the size of a small country. A world gone for nearly 8,500 years. Scientists turned to tools that our ancestors could never have imagined. Deep-sea drilling, sonar seafloor mapping, sediment core sampling, underwater drones, ancient DNA extraction, geological reconstruction, algorithms, pollen and plant microfossil analysis one by one. The layers of Doggerland came back to life. The ancient aliens CAPI. They discovered that Doggerland once contained a massive central upland, a sprawling river system larger than the Thames, dozens of lakes as big as modern countries, endless wetlands, deep carved valleys, long migratory paths for ancient humans, rich forests that grew in seasonal cycles where fishermen see an endless ocean today. Scientists see the shadows of vanished forests buried under silt. Microfossils told them what trees once stood there. Birch, pine, oak, hazel, elder willow. They could even identify ancient flowers that bloomed near homes. Flowers whose seeds still hide beneath seabed mud. Doggerland wasn't just a land bridge. It was alive, full of sunlight, wild animals, human families, and complex societies. People of Doggerland, their lives a revier. Archaeologists reconstructed how the people lived. They built circular huts using wood frames and animal hides. Flint tools were crafted with precision. They hunted giant elk, aurochs, and boar. They carved figurines from bone. They traveled in dugout canoes along wide rivers. They fished using nets woven from plant fibers. We even know they created their own forms of art carvings, markings, and decorative objects that served as identity, memory, and ritual. Their culture was far richer than anyone previously imagined. These were not wandering nomads. They were settled, intelligent societies adapting to a rapidly changing world. They saw the land fall. APART researchers found something strange in the sediment layers. A sudden increase in mud, a shift in mineral deposits, a change in plant pollen. A spike in marine shell particles, a rapid disappearance of forest species meant one thing. Doggerland didn't disappear slowly. Large sections collapsed suddenly. Storms destroyed parts of the land. Salt water invaded rivers. Freshwater lakes turned brackish. Animals fled. Tribes moved in panic. People witnessed their homeland breaking apart in real time. The last map of a dying WRLD using advanced modeling. Scientists created a time-lapse of Doggerland's death, 12,000 years ago. A massive green continent, 10,000 years ago. Northern flooding begins. 8,800 years ago. Storegga megatsunami devastates settlements. 7,500 years ago. Rivers and valleys drowned. 7,000 years ago. Land breaks into islands. 6,200 years ago. Dogger Island remains alone. 5,800 to 6,000 years ago. Complete disappearance. Every step recorded in the layers beneath the sea. Every step confirming that an entire civilization was erased. Reconstructing Doggerland wasn't just an archaeological project. It was an act of resurrection, bringing a forgotten world back to life. When Doggerland drowned, its people faced a fate as dramatic as any story in human history. They were forced into a journey that would reshape the entire genetic map of Europe. But before they left, they fought to survive. The Great Migration. B.G. and Ispicha, the last generations of Doggerland's families. Mothers gathering what little food remained, fathers scouting for higher ground. Children watching their homes sink, elders telling ancient stories of land that once stretched. Endless tribes debating whether to stay or move. They were not helpless. They were resilient, adaptable people. But the land they depended on was collapsing beneath their feet. Villagers moved inland every few years. Camps were abandoned. Rivers changed direction. Forests died. Salt water contaminated fresh water. Animals disappeared. The environment was turning against them, and then the day came when the sea rose high enough to isolate Dogger Island, the last remnant of their world. The survivors realized something terrifying. Their homeland was no longer safe. They needed to leave. Forever. Splitting of tribes, new peoples, EMRGs, Doggerland, refugees migrated outward. They split into groups. Group 1, the northern migrants, early Britons. They crossed into the rising hills of what would later become Britain. These people became some of the earliest ancestors of Britons. They brought with them tool-making, knowledge, hunting, traditions, rituals of burial, legends of the drowning land group to the southern migrants. Continental Europeans, these tribes journeyed into today's Netherlands, Belgium, France, Denmark, and Germany. Their culture mixed with local groups, forming new societies. Group 3, the river people. They followed ancient river routes southward, moving toward warmer climates. Group 4, the last islanders. These were the people who lived on Dogger Island until it was finally submerged. They witnessed the very last dry land of Doggerland sink beneath the ocean. Their final moments must have been heartbreaking, a world ending, a history erased, a homeland drowned, the legends they see are aright. Even though Doggerland vanished, its memories survive through stories. These stories became legends passed for thousands of years. Tales of a great flood, myths of a sunken homeland, memories of forests swallowed by the oceans, stories of gods angry at humans, the idea of a land that once connected the world. Many ancient cultures in northern Europe share flood myths. These myths were not fiction. They were memories of Doggerland. The Doggerland genetic legacy. Modern DNA testing reveals something stunning. Almost every northern European population carries traces of Doggerland ancestry. The refugees didn't die out. They became the foundation of new cultures. Doggerland people are part of the bloodline of early Britons, Scandinavians, Dutch, Germans, Northern French, Baltic peoples, some early Slavic groups there. Disappearance from geography. It was not a disappearance from history. They survived through us. The final FOOTP re-anti-Simogen. The last Doggerland family standing on a shrinking piece of land. Wind howling, waves crashing, their homeland behind them, swallowed by the sea. They look one last time at the horizon, a place where their ancestors hunted, laughed, lived, and died. Now nothing but endless water. They turn away and walk toward a new world, uncertain, fearful, but determined there. Footsteps became the first steps into the future of Europe. Doggerland ended, but its people continued the story of humanity. For thousands of years, the North Sea has guarded its secrets with cold, merciless waves. But beneath those waves lies one of the richest archaeological treasure fields on Earth, the lost continent of Doggerland. Yet even today, we've explored less than 5% of the seabed. What remains hidden may completely rewrite human history. The sea that does not give up. Its DAD, the ocean above Doggerland, is violent, unpredictable, and dangerous. Its tides can tear apart equipment. Its storms can destroy million-dollar submersibles. Its waters are filled with silt so thick that sunlight disappears just a few meters down. For centuries, these harsh conditions protected the ancient world below. Nothing could disturb the seabed for thousands of years. But then came the first accidental discovery. A fisherman hauled up a massive piece of peat. Not sand, not fish, but ancient forest floor. Inside that peat were seeds of plants extinct. For 8,000 years, pieces of tree bark from Doggerland forests, pollen from flowers long vanished, a carved wooden fragment from a home, tiny bones of children who once lived there, a world once full of life. Now trapped inside a fisherman's net. The underwater laboratory yesterday. Scientists use specialized drilling ships to extract long sediment cores from beneath the North Sea. These cores are like time capsules, each layer capturing a moment in Doggerland's life. A storm that destroyed a forest, a migration of animals stamped into the soil, a drought that killed a generation, the first arrival of humans along riverbanks, the final layers of sand and salt as the sea invaded inside these sediments. Researchers have found DNA of animals extinct for millennia, DNA fragments of Doggerland humans, plant remains from ancient farms, microscopic insects from prehistoric summers, charcoal from ancient cooking fires, burial, soil altered by decomposing bodies. Every sample is a whisper from the past. The Ghost Arriver sonar mapping revealed something astonishing. Doggerland still has river systems perfectly preserved. Under the ocean, deep channels cut through the seabed. Tributaries merge into larger rivers. Floodplains lie undisturbed by time. Scientists have traced a mega river that was once as large as the Rhine. It flowed across Doggerland, supporting entire communities. Today, that river runs silently beneath 40 meters of water, frozen in darkness. A dead river in a drowned world. The lost settlement scientists believe Doggerland contains hundreds of ancient homes, burial grounds, fishing camps, stone tool workshops, ritual sites, community gathering points, ancient roads, children's play areas, but they are buried beneath shifting sands, violent currents, underwater dunes, deep silt layers. This makes excavation nearly impossible with current technology. But occasionally, the sea reveals something. A perfectly preserved wooden spear, a human skull fragment, a polished deer antler carved with spiral patterns, a stone axe still sharp after 10,000 years, ash from a fire pit, a child's toy carved from bone, pieces of Doggerland's soul, the mystery of the Doggerland. SQL Lester, most haunting discovery came from dredging operations. Several fragments of human skulls pulled from the deep. Carbon dating showed they belonged to Doggerland's final generations, men, women, even children. Marks on the bones revealed. Some died naturally, some died during storms and floods, some were buried intentionally. Some may have been victims of conflict or ritual. One skull showed signs of healing from a violent blow, proving Doggerland was not always peaceful. Another had deep-cut marks, a sign of early mortuary practices or cannibalism. The sea does not lie. The bones tell the truth. Doggerland was alive. Doggerland was complex. Doggerland was human. The uncovered building, FONI, assign one part of the seabed. Sonar imaging revealed rectangular formations, too precise to be natural. These might be foundation posts, wooden floor structures, walls of homes, platforms, used for rituals if confirmed. These would be the oldest known buildings in that part of Europe, a civilization buried under the waves, waiting for us to listen. Doggerland is not done SBACRING every year. Storms uncover new artifacts. Every year, trawlers pull up ancient wood or bone. Every year, science advances. Eventually, underwater drones may uncover entire neighborhoods frozen in time, untouched for 9,000 years. Imagine a perfectly preserved home, a cooking pit with bones still inside, stone tools lying where they were last placed, footprints of children fossilized in river mud, a burial site with handmade decorations, all waiting beneath the cold, black water. Dug hides a kingdom of secrets, and we have only just begun to open the door. While most of Doggerland drowned over centuries, one final piece of land held on, a rising ridge that became known as Dogger Island. It was here that the last chapter of Doggerland's human story unfolded. The island, above a dying W, world as the rest of Doggerland disappeared. Dogger Island became a refuge, a lookout, a final home, a shrinking sanctuary. Tribes that once roamed huge landscapes were now confined to a patch of land surrounded by endless water. Here, the last Doggerland, families tried to survive. Hunting became harder, fishing became the main food source. Freshwater sources were limited, storms became more violent, winters grew harsher, sea levels rose relentlessly. They watched their world sink. Every year, the horizon got closer. The last Vialoja researchers believed that Dogger Island once held several huts, drying racks for fish, simple wooden canoes, small gathering circles, ritual stones, tools made from the final forests of Doggerland. Life on the island was hard, but the people were resilient. Children played among driftwood. Mothers stitched animal hides. Hunters carved spears from bone. Fires burned bright at night, but always they watched the sea, and the sea watched them back. The island begins to Sarayankatha. Change became visible within a single generation. Cliffs collapsed. Beaches vanished. Storm surges reached the village boundaries. Salt water poised nearby freshwater pools. Fish disappeared. Bird migration patterns shifted. The people realized the truth. Their homeland was dying, and nothing could save it. The emotional burden of the last gain Raranum. Imagine being a young child on Dogger Island. You grow up hearing stories of a land that once stretched beyond the horizon, forests, rivers, lakes, animals. A world you would never see. Imagine the elders pointing to the sea and saying, "Out there, your ancestors lived. Your great-grandparents walked where the waves now are." For the last generation, Doggerland was not a memory. It was a ghost. A ghost that surrounded them from every direction. The final decision, leave or die eventually. Survival became impossible. No food. No shelter from storms. No fresh water. No stable ground. The last people of Doggerland gathered to discuss their future. Some wanted to stay, believing the land would grow again. Others knew the truth. The sea never gives back what it takes. They crafted their last boats, prepared supplies, said goodbye to the land of their ancestors. And one morning, as the tide receded, they pushed their boats into the water and left Doggerland forever. Those who survived the journey reached Britain and Europe. Those who didn't, their bones rest beneath the waves. The last footprints on Dogger Island washed away that night. The final Sian Kianji Dogger Island did not last long after its people fled. Storms hit. Waves tore through the last remaining soil. Cliffs collapsed. The sea rose one last time, and the island disappeared beneath the ocean, never to be seen again. The story of Doggerland ended in silence, but its people carried the memory forward, and that memory became part of us. Doggerland is gone. Nothing of it rises above the waves today, but the question still lingers in the minds of scientists, historians, and dreamers. Could Doggerland ever rise again? Could the drowned world return to the surface one day? The short, scientific answer is no, but the deeper truth is far more fascinating, because Doggerland still lives, in ways we never expect. The geological reality, a land that can never reach your run to understand why Doggerland cannot rise again. We must understand what happened beneath the sea after it drowned. Beneath the North Sea, the seabed shifted, tectonic plates moved sediment, buried valleys, sand dunes, expanded ocean pressure, reshaped everything over thousands of years. New layers of sand have replaced Doggerland's soil. Entire river systems have been crushed under massive underwater dunes. Ancient lakes have filled with marine clay. Some places are now more than 40 meters below sea level. Even if sea levels dropped, Doggerland wouldn't simply reappear like a drained lake. Its topography has transformed so dramatically that the world beneath is unrecognizable. The Doggerland of today is not land at all. It is an underwater desert, a graveyard of lost earth, and yet the story doesn't end there. Doggerland's hidden power, the world is still iron effluent, even though the land is gone. Doggerland continues to shape our world in surprising ways. Ocean current, PATT-RNS, the shape of the seabed, carved by ancient Doggerland rivers, still directs the North Sea's currents. These currents affect climate storms, coastal erosion, marine life, migration even. Today, Doggerland's ghost guides the movement of water. Modern Lion as the coastline of Britain, Denmark, and the Netherlands is shaped partly because Doggerland once stood between them like a shield. When Doggerland drowned, waves became more violent, winds stronger, coasts more vulnerable. Modern Europe's geography still echoes the death of that land. Human migration patterns Doggerland's disappearance forced its people outward, forming the ancestral roots of many European populations. The fall of a continent created the rise of new cultures. Cultural memories, flood myths found across Europe, stories of gods drowning lands, of oceans swallowing worlds, may all be the final echoes of Doggerland's last survivors. The land is gone, but its influence remains. Asterisk, asterisk, if Doggerland cannot rise, then what can I teach us? Asterisk, asterisk, this question unlocks the deeper meaning of Doggerland. Doggerland is not a story about land. It is a story about change, about resilience, about how humanity adapts when the world collapses beneath its feet. Thousands of years ago, humans faced rising seas, changing climates, collapsing ecosystems, mass migrations, uncertain futures, and yet they survived. They adapted to a world that changed faster than they could. Understand their story is our story. Doggerland teaches us that we are not the first humans forced to confront a changing planet. We are simply repeating a cycle written into our history. The land will not rise again, but the lessons will dot the symbol of Doggerland. A warning for our time: sea levels today are rising faster than at any point since Doggerland drowned. Cities like London, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Hamburg, Venice, New York, Shanghai are facing the same threats ancient Doggerlanders once faced. Doggerland is a mirror showing us our potential future, a reminder that no land is permanent, no coastline is guaranteed, no civilization is safe from time. But Doggerland also shows us something hopeful. Human beings endure. Human beings adapt. Human beings survive. Doggerland did not rise again, but its people continued the story of humanity, and through them Doggerland lives forever. Tonight, as ships cross the North Sea and passengers sleep under warm blankets, none of them know that just below the dark waves lies one of the greatest forgotten landscapes in human history. A world that once echoed with human voices. A land where children played beside rivers. A place where fires burned in ancient homes. A homeland filled with dreams, fears, and memories. Doggerland. The world beneath the waves. This final chapter is not about loss, but about remembrance. The sea above a lost world. Imagine standing on the deck of a ship as it crosses the central North Sea. Beneath your feet, Under 120 feet of cold water lies abandoned river valleys, fossilized forests, footprints trapped in ancient mud, forgotten campsites, unburied tools, bones of the last survivors, entire ecosystems frozen in time. Every wave hides a memory. Every current slides across a buried story. The sea is not empty. It is full of ghosts. The eternal stillness below deep underwater. There is no sound. Only darkness. Only pressure. Only the silent weight of history. The rivers no longer flow. The trees no longer grow. The fires no longer burn. But the land remains. Still, quiet, unchanged for 9,000 years. This stillness is powerful. A reminder that civilizations can vanish without leaving. A single building standing above water. The people who still live in memory. Doggerland's people are gone, but their presence lingers. Their tools lie in the mud, perfectly preserved by the cold sea. Their spears rest where they were dropped. Their burial sites hide under sand. Their homes remain as faint outlines on the seabed. The North Sea holds them in its arms, gently, quietly, respectfully. Their story is not erased. It is waiting for us to uncover it, waiting for us to remember it. The archaeologists of POMOROW someday, perhaps in a few decades. New technology will allow us to explore Doggerland fully. Underwater excavation drones, higher resolution seabed scanners, robotic divers, AI-driven 3D reconstruction, genetic sampling from ancient soils. When that day comes, we may walk Doggerland again, virtually. In stunning detail, we may see the houses as they once stood. We may hear the rivers as they once flowed. We may explore the campsites our ancestors left behind. We may meet the faces of Doggerland's people through reconstructed ancient DNA. The past will return, not as land, but as knowledge. The last message of Doggerland carries 3 final lessons. Nothing on earth is permanent, not even entire continents. The land changes. The sea rises. Civilizations come and go. Human strength is adaptation. Our ancestors survived the drowning of a world. We carry their resilience in our blood. Stories are stronger than time. Land can sink, but memories rise. A continent can vanish, but its people remain in us. The final image picture, Doggerland as it was, a vast green world full of rivers, forests, and human life. Picture Doggerland as it is, a silent landscape sleeping under the waves. 2 worlds, separated by time, connected by memory. Doggerland is gone, but not forgotten. It lives beneath the waves. It lives in our DNA. It lives in our stories. And now it lives in you.